We got a Monday night doubleheader, Packers at the New York Giants and Titans at the Dolphins. So, Tyson, I think we just got to figure out how we're not going to have 1,000 lineups that is just all Dolphins players, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Let's get into it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, we got a Monday two-gamer. I love these two-gamers, man. These are fun. Week 14, end of the best ball season, so I'm excited about that. We also have two shows that we're doing individually for these showdown slates. Those are going to be for the YouTube members. Click down below, hit join if you want to check those out, help to support the channel. But Ellie, let's get into this, man. Titans going into Miami, so we shouldn't have to worry about any weather there. At night, so they don't have that slight advantage that they would usually have with the sun blaring down on folks. That's a 13-point spread, 46.5-point total. This Titans defense, when it comes to the pass, not looking so hot this year. They're one of the worst in the league. This is a prime spot for Miami to absolutely crush up on the Titans. The biggest question here is, can the Titans put up points? Can they score? Can Will Levis step up? Do we get some DeAndre Hopkins? Do we get some King Henry here? I think that probably you want to have maybe some game stacks for this two-gamer. So that's the first game. Interesting. Packers going into New York. So this is an outdoor game, obviously. We're having a lot of weather going on, for Sunday. But it doesn't look like there's going to be any rain. Now, there should be some rain earlier in the day, but this is a 37-point total, and Packers are 6.5-point road favorites. Thoughts on this matchup here, man? We'll get into the Dolphins one in a minute, but let's start with this one. Packers are looking great. It's almost like a tale of two seasons for them. Started out a little slow, didn't look great. Everyone's questioning whether or not Jordan Love is actually the quarterback of this team, and they've been crushing the last few weeks. Beat the Lions on Thanksgiving, beat Kansas City last week. They're in a good spot here. I don't think that there's any reason why we should think that the Packers are not going to win this game. The biggest question is, can we see this blitz-heavy defense sort of hold Jordan Love in check for a game that should be relatively cold? We're not scared of playing Packers players when it's cold, obviously. But this New York Jets defense, the run defense is bad. But when it comes to actually the pass defense, I think they can confuse quarterbacks. Wink Martindale likes to blitz, and Jordan Love seems to struggle against the blitz this season. When they played Minnesota, a team that also likes to blitz, Jordan Love did not have a good game earlier this year, and they lost. But do we chalk that up as, okay, well, that was kind of a different team sort of thing earlier this year? I don't know. When I first looked at this, I said, man, Jordan Love stacks are going to be sick. But I'm kind of thinking maybe unless you're playing like a 20 max or more, maybe you stick with the Tua build here for this one. But thoughts on this matchup overall here? I think Saquon is in a really good spot against the Packers' run defense. That's their weak spot here. So thoughts on Tommy DeVito and Saquon here? Can we get any of these Giants involved?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're going to have to. This is going to be an interesting game to target in general. I think everyone's going to get really caught up in just Miami and Tennessee in general. You have, even if you're not hyped about Tennessee, you still have DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry that people are going to want to play from that. So I think this game is going to be the key to kind of winning this slate, right? I'm sure the Packers will be moderately chalky, but I think really getting the Giants correct is going to be the difference to having a low-owned dude who maybe has 15, 20 points that, can win a two-game slate.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So there's a lot of good options here. Like, obviously, this is a classic slate. This isn't Showdown, but this is a two-gamer, so we can play some of these maybe backups or third-string wide receivers that we typically wouldn't play on a bigger slate. When it comes to tight ends on this slate, though, dude, there's really nobody to really talk about. So we'll get into that in a minute. What jumps out to you with this Miami game against the Titans? It feels like everybody, there's no reason to not play Tyreek Hill here. But I think that Jalen Waddle gets a pretty big boost just because of the fact that this Titans defense is terrible against outside receivers. They're terrible against all receivers, basically, but they're one of the worst in the leagues when it comes to shutting down outside guys. And if you look at some of these previous games against stud wide receivers, or just not even stud wide receivers. We're seeing some big outputs. We got Calvin Ridley 100-yard game, Pittman and Pierce each with 100-yard games. Mike Evans, Deontay Johnson even had 90 yards a few weeks back. This feels like you just got to jam in. If you're not doing Tua stacks, you still got to jam in probably 2 or 3 pass catchers from this Dolphins team, right? Like, so what are your thoughts on this? And when it comes to Tennessee, who are you interested in getting involved? Like, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be, this is a matchup we've seen a lot. Probably going to be manned up with Ramsey, Jalen Ramsey, back to the NFC West days, and then even before that, when they were in the AFC South together. So thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins here? Thoughts on King Henry? This Miami defense is pretty damn good. I know they lost their best pass rusher was last week, popped his Achilles, or 2 weeks ago. But dude, you got to think that this Miami defense can shut down Will Levis and a not so great Titans offense.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I want to say is like this is getting to that point in the year where you need to be mindful of just kind of what you're doing with the Tennessee Titans. They're just kind of a mediocre team for the first 10 games or so on, right? But as we get into December, it's just it's too cold. I mean, obviously Miami's a little bit different, but it's too hard trying to tackle Derrick Henry. So like this is one of those games that like I wouldn't necessarily be too crazy about, right? Like I 13 and a half points, 2 touchdowns against Mike Vrabel defense this late in December is, that's kind of a lot to me. That said, that means I think that the Titans are going to have a little bit more offensive output. I wouldn't necessarily go in like targeting Miami defense, right, for a game like this, just because I think Derrick Henry will do enough to get involved. Now, the one thing about Derrick Henry is like I don't know how he cleared concussion protocol so quickly. So that's the one thing. Like, this has just been a medical year, like just a medical marvel year. We got Aaron Rodgers coming back, Trevor Lawrence coming back on a high ankle sprain after 1 week, and concussion protocol. Derrick Henry, he survived, right? So look, if he's good, his head is clear. I think he's fine. But look, man, Henry, Hopkins. Like, it really doesn't matter what the matchup is. I don't think Jalen Ramsey is what he used to be. Obviously, he's still one of the best corners in the league, but his health is kind of made it inconsistent in being on the field at times. So all Hopkins needs is one play, right? And he can have 3 touchdowns. And obviously, that's tongue in cheek from that 3 touchdown game earlier in the season. But he can ball out regardless.
And a guy like Will Levis, I mean, I'm not afraid to play Will Levis stacks in this one. Maybe,
He has
1 or 2
nothing to
stack.
lose, dude.
And dude, this guy's got an arm, like a big play arm. When you watch him play, it's just enjoyable to watch. He's got a really nice arm. And a guy like Hopkins who can get deep and in these 50-50 situations can absolutely take the ball away. We've seen it for years as an Arizona Cardinals fan. This dude's not washed yet. He's towards the end of his career, but he's still got something in the tank. Let's look at some of these matchups here. So I got this from Fantasy Fellowship on TikTok. When it comes to quarterback and wide receiver points allowed, you look at the Titans here when it comes to wide receiver points allowed. Not a lot of touchdowns given up, but they're 29th in wide receiver fantasy points allowed this year. That's, like I said, this is a perfect matchup for these pass catchers for Miami. I mean, we're talking about one of the best offenses we've ever seen going up against a team that cannot stop wide receivers. Got to play a ton of these guys. Quarterback fantasy points allowed. When it comes to all these stats, like what's jumping out to you? Like to me, if you look at overall, the New York Giants here, pretty low when it comes to quarterback points allowed, and tight ends are one of the lowest in the league. It's just that the running backs, and they are giving up some yards to wide receivers, but they're a little bit better than what we thought earlier in the year. We've seen teams turn it around, like the Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos. They've turned their defenses around towards the end of the year here. I don't think that Green Bay is in an absolute smash spot for a guy like Jordan Love to put 300 yards up. It's possible, but it's not like one of these guys that I'm going to go out of my way to just absolutely jam in, which I think he's going to be higher owned than we think he is, just because of how good he's been doing. Thoughts on any of these matchups that jump out to you, man? It seems like the Titans are pretty good against running backs and tight ends, but Miami has a really good defense, man. We got to attack this Green Bay run defense, though. Like that's one of their weak points on this team. And a guy like Saquon Barkley to me is in a good spot. He's expensive. He'll probably be relatively owned just because there's not a ton of options. But I think he should probably be higher owned than we think. Thoughts on Saquon on this one?
Yeah, no, that's about what I was gonna say. I mean, we're looking at that game. I think you're right on. We need to attack New York, or I'm sorry, the Packers to the ground game. And to be quite frank, like if the Giants want to stay competitive, like I'm not sure how long they can ride Danny DeVito and his arm. They need to ride their all pro running back that they signed to a massive extension. So yeah, I think that's the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most for the Packers game.
A couple other notes here. Rest in peace, Frank Wycheck just came through today. Music City Miracle, Titans playing. Let's jump to this side here. So what jumps out to me here is Tyrod Taylor is back, and he's a little disappointed. This was literally this was the photo that they put in the article. With Dayball answering questions here. He said, "I just thought Tommy earned it," and I mean he's not wrong. Like I know that Tyrod Taylor is probably the most unlucky quarterback in the history of sports of the NFL. Like this dude has just been injury after injury losing his jobs. You know what I mean? A guy like Danny DeVito taking his job is brutal. But he's going to get the start again, which is kind of a big deal here. Thoughts on Danny DeVito, man? Are you interested in getting a stack or two with him? He's so damn cheap, man.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've only got four starting quarterbacks on the slate. I'm gonna have a little bit of exposure to some of these guys. I'm not gonna be playing. I mean, I'm not gonna be doing just single entries, right? So I'm gonna be doing some 20 max. I'm gonna have to get some of this offense and hope that the Giants can do something worth
Like I
playing.
said, like I said earlier, Jordan Love is just not great under pressure. So if the Giants can actually put some pressure on him this game, maybe you just see a little bit lower output. He's still the second best quarterback on the slate, and I'm going to have plenty of him. But I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and bite the ownership and just go with a ton of Tua. Vikings, the blitz heavy defense, 24-10 in week 9, I believe it was, or week 8, something like that. Jordan Love with a low quarterback rating, 229 yards. So he put up yards in the air, but his accuracy was all over the place. Let's get into injuries here. Let me cue that.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So let's start with this game. So Christian Watson's out. That's a big deal. I think that really, really hurts this team. We've talked about it over the past few showdown slates where we've done Green Bay games. When Christian Watson is healthy and involved, this team is really good. Having a true number one like that who can he's fast as hell and he's tall as hell. He can take these 50-50 balls, score in the red zone. With him out, it opens up a lot of value, and we're going to want to be involved with some of these guys for Green Bay, some of these pass catchers. But we have a guy like Yair Alexander who's questionable. Aaron Jones is questionable again. What do we do if Aaron Jones plays in this game, dude? Like, that is my worst nightmare because we have a pretty straightforward A.J. Dillon December game outdoors. You would think that this is a good spot for him going up against this Giants run defense. But if Aaron Jones plays, that kind of puts a kink in our plans, right? Are you interested in getting to Aaron Jones with his injury history this year? And he just really hasn't done anything this year.
I mean, if he's, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit interested in him. I'm not going to have a bunch of exposure, but I will play a couple lineups with him. Aaron Jones is Aaron Jones. He'll show up for one slate, have 4 or 5 touchdowns, and then disappear for the rest of the year. So, other than that, man, like I think I'll probably have maybe 5-10% of him max, and then probably end up fading AJ Dillon to some extent. But I don't know, man. Like, I think you still have to have a little bit of exposure to this run game, regardless of who's active, just because of how bad the Giants are at it. Or I'm sorry, the Giants just suck in general in the defense. I know they're improving, but
Yeah, exactly. So Daniel Bellinger has been on the field a ton this year, obviously, now that he's the main guy. But he's a DMP. I don't have up to date. We're recording this on Sunday at like 3 p.m. I don't really have anything up to date when it comes to Daniel Bellinger. If he's active, like I said, this is a graveyard for tight ends on this slate. He's going to be interesting to get some exposure to. But if he's out, Luke Cage or Lawrence Cage or whatever the hell this guy's name is, might be the guy to target very cheap. And even on Showdown, which we're doing 2 other shows for Showdown, but this tight end player pool is pretty bad. You got Chico Conquo, you got Bellinger, you got a couple of guys here that we might be interested. Kraft. But what does it do to you if Bellinger is in? Are you interested in getting some Bellinger? He's dirt cheap, just like all these tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, outside of what the top two, everybody's going to be 2,500. So if they're starting, I'll rotate in whoever's playing. If and what Waller is going to be playing slot anyway. So Bellinger, he's the guy you're going to have pretty decent exposure to him, and then yeah, man, what they're the backup Lucas Cage or Luke Cage, Luke Cager, whatever the fuck his name is. I think he's fine too. He'll be an interesting option if Bellinger's out.
Waller's dead. Yeah, he's on IR. He's been dead for a few weeks. But yeah,
Oh, my
I know
bad.
what you're saying. All right, let's get into this breakdown. Give me 2 seconds here. Let me cue this up. We're going to go into Saber Sim here and look at some of these lineups. Let's break it down. Break it down. That didn't work. Oops. All right, so Tua is 7,300. Jordan Love's 6K. Will Levis 5,300, and Danny DeVito is 5,100. We got to just play Tua here, right? I know he's 7,300, but there's plenty of value to find on this slate. There's tons of these Green Bay wide receivers that are well priced. There's plenty of cheap ass tight ends. I don't think we want to get to any 2 tight end builds just because the volume isn't there for these guys. But I feel like we're going to have to just bite the bullet and play Tua a lot. But look, if you want to get crazy with it, play Tua in your single entry, stack the shit out of these Miami pass catchers, and maybe do a Jordan Love, some GPP lineups with Jordan Love and just with all of these guys. So what are we doing here, man? This has got to be like, this feels like a 80% Tua type day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to have as much exposure to him as you can. He's going to be the top quarterback on the slate. That said, like these other guys, I think are worth getting a little bit of exposure to. Jordan Love being 25 plus is kind of weird for me. That's a little bit high. I think you probably have around 15 to 20%, and that's good for him. But Levis and DeVito, I definitely think are in play too, right? Like I don't want to I don't necessarily know if I want 100% exposure to Tua, so I think you can rotate in Tommy and Will Levis a little bit. But to your point, maybe a unique way to approach this slate is if you are doing MME, you're doing 20 max and things of those nature. Maybe you go 80, 90, 95% Tua and just don't even risk it with some of these other quarterbacks. I mean, dude's gonna put 20 points, 20 fantasy points on the board. That's what he does pretty much week in, week out.
Only thing that worries me here is, this game gets out of hand quick and Tua just isn't used and they run the ball more. We've seen it plenty of times with this Dolphins team. But with a guy that's probably going to throw for two touchdown passes at minimum, you'd have to assume that 7,300 is just a price that you're just going to have to eat. I'll have plenty of Jordan Love stacks. I'll have Will Levis stacks. I'll have some Tommy DeVito. I'd rather play Will Levis at 5,300 over Tommy DeVito at 5,100. But I think you got to spread yourself out a little bit here when it comes to Jordan Love, Levis, and DeVito. Let's go to running backs. So Saquon 7,100, Devon Achane 7K, Mostert 6,700. Derrick Henry 65. You got Aaron Jones at 6K, and then you got AJ Dillon at 5,300. This is the top. These are the top end guys, and Barkley coming in probably 55% owned. I don't think it's a secret. This is a very good matchup for him. And plus, look, the guy can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a dynamic dude. We know he can get involved, even if this team is losing. He still has a shot to get you there. What are we doing with the running backs here, man? It feels like we're gonna have to make a decision with Devon Achane and Mostert. These guys are expensive. If we want to get to some of these high-end pass catchers on Miami, are we going to be able to stack Achane and Mostert with them? I don't know, man. Is it even necessary going up against the Tennessee defense, who's not terrible against the run? What are we doing with this top-tier guys? And A.J. Dillon at 5,300, if Aaron Jones is out, this is a smash spot for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think really I'm going to prioritize Saquon and Derrick Henry. I understand what HN is and how Mostert's what leading the league in touchdowns this year. So I get it. But look, here's the thing: is like, are we really just going to bank on Devon HN being the second coming of Barry Sanders? Right? He's averaging like what 22 points or 22 yards per carry or some bullshit. So like, I don't know, man. Like I think that this is an interesting one. Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee defense, they usually come prepared to stop something like that. I think that they'll be fine stopping the run. And look, man, again, if you're telling me Achan is 50% projected ownership and Derrick Henry's cheaper and half the projected ownership, like I don't know, man. Like that just means like I want to invert it. Like I'm gonna have a shitload of Derrick Henry. And then to your point, right? Let's just real quick talk about Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, right? Just if you remove the names and just see their price, like again in their matchup, I think you got to really just consider whoever's healthy. If Aaron Jones is active, like I even kind of take back what I was saying a little bit earlier. 6K is crazy. I think you might have a little bit more than 10-15%, right? And then if he's out, AJ Dillon at 5,300, like that's a lot of savings, man. That's a lot of flexibility it gives you to put in some of these stud wide receivers.
Yeah, as of right now, it looks like probably AJ Dillon is the highest owned, along with Saquon. So you're going to get a lot of Saquon, a lot of AJ Dillon builds together. If Aaron Jones is back, that will absolutely mess with the ownership here quite a bit. I think. I don't think that Aaron Jones necessarily gets high ownership, but AJ Dillon coming back is going to cut into his carries and his usage. You probably should expect a guy like AJ Dillon to come in under 50% owned at that point. Tajay Spears at 5K is interesting. We know about Derrick Henry's injury issues. I don't know how much I'm interested in a guy like that at 5K. But look, if there's any reports coming out that Derrick Henry would be limited, I don't know why he would if he's clear concussion protocol. But it's worth getting a couple builds if you're doing 20 max or especially 150 max, getting Tajay Spears. Jeff Wilson, 4,300. All these guys I'm not really interested in down here. Patrick Taylor, you could argue that if Aaron Jones is out, Aaron Jones is out, you could get some exposure to him at 4,400. I just don't think it's necessary. I think you stay above Tajay Spears, probably sprinkle him in a little bit, and everybody above him, you spend up at running back for the most part. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, and just opportunity cost, you'll see it right now when we transition over to wide receivers. Min price running back is what 4K. You can probably get a better wide receiver at 4K than one of these shitty running backs.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Tyreek Hill's 9,200, Jalen Waddle's 7,500. No surprise there. Tyreek Hill, if he's under 80% owned, that's crazy to me. Look, is there a world where Tyreek Hill, who's fighting for that 2,000-yard season, is shut down? Maybe because Waddle gets 2 touchdowns and they just don't need to use Tyreek Hill. Look, dude, Tyreek Hill's floor is like 15 to 20 fantasy points, every week. I don't think you need to get too smart here. If you're trying to get different, you can do it in other ways. Just play Tyreek Hill. He's 9,200. Unless he gets injured in this game, he's probably going to be in the optimal. But a guy like Jalen Waddle, a 7,500 here, if you wanted to fade Tyreek in a couple of builds, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But make sure you get Waddle in at minimum, because if somebody's going to go off, it's going to be one of these two guys. There's just not a lot of options as far as pass catchers on this team. It's just 2 dudes mainly that's getting a lot of the run, and you might see a scrub here or there from Miami that might get you a touchdown or might get you 10 plus fantasy points. But most of this volume is going to go to Waddle and Tyreek. Dude, you got to play a lot of Waddle in this matchup. I feel like he's 45% owned, so he's probably going to be around half the ownership of Tyreek. If you can come in over the field and Waddle has a big day, I think that's pretty decent leverage at 7,500. Thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, man. I mean, the first thing I want to see is, damn, like you don't get a giant until you get under the 4K range. So that's fucking crazy. But look, I'll be building. I'll have a rule that'll force in Hill or Waddle, and I'll have one of them in a minimum of every lineup. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not gonna have a build without one of those two in, and I will probably have 80% exposure to Tyreek Hill, and I'll have a shitload of both these people in both lineups without Tua. Right? I think that's fine on a 2 gamer. So I'm not even gonna spend too much time on Hill and Waddle. You're fucking crazy if you're not playing them. They're 2 of the best wide receivers on this slate. DeAndre Hopkins, 6,100. Again, like I think he's fine. Like there's plenty of salary. After this, right? Everybody's 5K or lower. There's gonna be plenty of flexibility to build with these 3 studs at wide receiver. So like I really don't give a shit, who they're playing. Like DeAndre Hopkins, if the Titans are able to stay in this game, it's gonna be because Hopkins or Henry helped them stay in the game.
So Dobbs now is in that number 1 spot, 5K. We saw him do pretty decent last week. And with Christian Watson out, he's had a couple big games. Jaden Reed looks to be healthy at this point with that chest injury. He's 4,700. All these Green Bay guys, dude, Dontavian Wicks at 3,800. That's probably the best play on the slate as far as points per dollar, dudes that you want to get in. $3,800 for him is incredible. He probably plugs right into that role, that Christian Watson role. Maybe Romeo Doubs is getting more of the looks, but Dontavian Wicks is going to be on the field a lot. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. A guy like Jalen Hyatt is interesting at 3,400. Had a big game last week. Obviously, look, I didn't mention this earlier, but the Giants are coming off of a bye. So they get a little bit of a boost, and, they're able to prepare an extra week. They have good coaching staff. They have good play caller, good head coach, good defensive coordinator. Get a little bit of a boost here. Darius Slayton. I'm not really interested in any of these pass catchers for the Giants for the most part, except for Jalen Hyatt and probably a little bit of Wan'Dale Robinson. If you're playing like a game script where the Giants are losing in this game and they're putting up garbage time points, Wan'Dale and Jalen Hyatt are decent options. I'm just not super interested in any of these Giants guys when you have Dontavian Wicks at 3,800. I'd rather just play him every single time. Malik Heath should get some extra run here too at 3,200. So one guy I do want to talk about here though, dude, is Treylon Burks at 3K. Now he's come back from injury. They've eased him back in. I think he only had like 9 snaps last week. Is this a situation where this week you might see some more Treylon Burks if he's ready to go? They might roll him out in a bigger role, and he's 3K. He's a big play dude. I don't know, man. Treylon Burks is going to be so low owned. Feels like a guy that you could throw in these bigger tournaments and hope he gets a big play. Thoughts on Burks?
Yeah, man. Look, we talked about him in best ball earlier in the season, or when the season started. I think that he should benefit from DeAndre Hopkins being on the offense, right? He's not necessarily required to be that number one guy. I like him at 3K, like under 10% ownership. Like we're not going to have a number 2 wide receiver with a potential number 2 wide receiver that cheap with that much usage on a 2-gamer slate come in that low ownership. So I think he's fine.
Yeah, and we got some other guys. Maybe you'll see some Samori Toure a little bit. Maybe, probably not worth playing on this one. Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, all min priced. But Nick Westbrook-Akine at 3K. If you think that Treylon Burks is still going to be limited, dude, you got a number 2 wide receiver here projected for around 7 fantasy points at 3K. It's going to allow you to really get game stacks of this game with all the studs that you want to play. Even Chris Moore at 3K is worth talking about here. Cedric Wilson's 3K. There's a decent amount of 3K guys that I'm willing to consider playing this week. I'm not going to go super heavy. Sterling Shepard is not one of them. Thoughts on Nick Westbrook?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's same concept with Treylon Burks. Whoever's really going to be that second wide receiver has immense upside. Everyone's going to be locked in on Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins. So I think that you can consider whoever. I wouldn't necessarily play both if you're looking to double punt, right? But like both guys are under 15% owned. You can swap them out. They're both the same price.
Tight ends. This is a graveyard here. Darren Waller's out, obviously. Your most expensive tight end on this slate that's viable is 3,100 Chigo Okonkwo. Tucker Kraft at 3K. Daniel Bellinger, 2,800. Tucker Kraft is in a decent spot. If Jose DeGuara comes back, we're probably dealing with maybe a little bit of a little bit less downgrade for Tucker Kraft. But I think you just spread yourself out. There's not one of these dudes that I'm going to be super heavy on. You see that Chig is getting 40% ownership, Tucker Kraft 43% potentially. Daniel Bellinger is questionable. If he plays, I'm interested in him. But, dude, you just go down to Lawrence Cager at 2,500 if Daniel Bellinger is out. Not a smash spot. Maybe you get 5 or 6 fantasy points out of him. If it helps you to get Tyreek and Waddle and Tua and all these guys and Saquon, it's worth it. Durham Smythe is the number 1 tight end on this Miami team. But they just do not involve their tight ends at all. It's going to their wide receivers, and they're dumping off to their running backs here and there. They're not passing to their tight ends. So Durham Smythe at 2,500 is interesting, but I feel like any one of these tight ends could absolutely get a touchdown, I think you spread yourself out a bit. Is there one guy that you're really locked in on? If I had to gun to my head, if I had to choose, it'd be Chigo Okonkwo because I know that he's got some speed and some yards after catch ability. But who are you looking at here, man? Is Tucker Craft interesting to you? Where are you going tight end wise?
Yeah, man, I like Tucker Craft. I like Chig. Those are probably the two guys that'll be targeting the most. Tucker's just interesting because for $100 more, you can get up to Chig, who's probably a better wide receiver or a better tight end in general. But just there's a lot more weapons on the Tennessee offense. So look, Tucker Craft's interesting, especially with Christian Watson being out. Maybe he does get a little bit of uptick in usage in this game. Outside of that, man, like again, Daniel Bellinger's fine if he's in. If not, I mean, 2,500, right? Like this is just the perfect position to punt. So with Chig being 3,100, I don't think it really all that matters. Matters all that much. We'll see when we build here. I don't think it's going to be too crazy. It's going to free up too much going down too much. You know.
When I'm building on SaberSim, I'm going to make sure I do not allow tight ends in the flex for this one. There's just not enough volume. I mean, after I say that, of course, there's going to be a 2 tight end optimal. If you really, really were desperate for salary, maybe you could do that. It's just not something I'm going to do. All right, so defense here. So Packers, 3,700 going against Tommy DeVito and the Giants. Probably your best option, but we're going to need, in that last spot there, I mean, the Dolphins are $300 less at 3,400. This is a team that can attack the quarterback and can cause some turnovers here. They played well recently on defense. 3,400 for Dolphins. I know you said you weren't super into them earlier in the show. I think they're going to be one of these teams that saving that $300 might help you enough. When I was hand building, they seem to make it in a lot. But SaberSim is liking the Giants defense when it comes to jamming them in at 2,800 in order to get to a lot of these studs. I don't know. I'm not probably going to get to any Titans defense. I mean, there is a world where you get a sack, fumble, recovery for a touchdown. I mean, this is Mike Vrabel. But, dude, they're going to put up points. Miami's going to put up points. So you absolutely would need multiple sacks and a touchdown out of this Titans defense to make them viable. Where are you going defense-wise here, man? It feels like to me, on a 2-game slate, if you're, MMEing, game stacking one of these games and then going with the defense from the other, one of the defenses from the other game might be the way to go. Where are you going here, man? Packers defense is going to be pretty high owned. Can Saquon put it on them?
Yeah, man. Look, yeah. Hey, look, this is just an easy place to get leverage. Like the range of outcomes isn't all that crazy. I don't think the Packers are going to score 12 points on defense, where the Titans are going to score, 0 points. I think enough to kind of justify this ownership at least. So, like, here's the one thing. If we really want to sit and talk about it, we talk about Miami. This is the first season that Tua has been healthy, beyond like week 10 or 11. So if you want to, take a little bit of a risk, I think you can actually think about playing the Titans defense a little bit. Yeah, they might give up some points, but there's also, concussion risk for Tua in that team. And that team will fall apart without him back there for a game. So excuse me. Look, on a 2-game slate, a 5% ownership own defense to free up 1,400. I think it's worth considering. Cash single entry, I think you need to go Packers or Dolphins. Don't get cute there. But look, I don't want to get crazy with Titans defense. Probably don't need more than 10 to 15. I think it's worth for large field GPPs.
All right, let's look at value. I know we've kind of gone over this, but I kind of want to summarize it for people jumping around here. So let's sort by value and let's kind of talk about this. As of right now, A.J. Dillon is coming in as the best point per dollar play on the slate. You got Tua right up there with him. Tyreek, Jaden Reed. When it comes to true value, though, like cheap guys that we're looking to fit in, I think Dontayvion Wicks has probably been my favorite. With Watson out, he's going to get a lot more run, and he's 3,800. All the tight ends are cheap. What are your thoughts on your favorite value type play on this slate? Probably a guy like A.J. Dillon, as long as Aaron Jones is out, is probably going to be one of the most popular players on the slate with that price.
Yeah, man. Look, I think a guy like Jaden Reed's fine. Like the obvious place to look is going to be the Green Bay Packers, right? With Christian Watson out, you got to really consider some of these guys. I like Jaden Reed at 4,700, but to your point, like if we're looking for true value, I think Dontavian Wicks would probably be the place to start. I think Tucker Craft is fine at tight end. And then obviously AJ Dillon. Those are really the key guys that we got to be looking at, I think.
All right, dude, let's jump into lineup builds here, man. So let's build our single entry. Let me actually move this around a little bit here so you guys can see this. Let's build our single entry. We got to go Tua here, man. Like, I know that there's some value to be had with Jordan Love, save a little bit of money, but I'm going Tua here. Well, let's just put in Waddle and Tyreek Hill with him right off the bat, right?
Let's do it.
All right, so running back. I like to get to some Saquon here, man. Let's try to get Saquon in. Let's fade one of the Miami running backs. I know that's scary. We'll get him in a minute. Maybe we'll try a build with them in and maybe without Waddle or something. Let's put Saquon in. Let's put AJ Dillon in. This is a good start, but we're dealing with some salary issues here. So let's go. When it comes to tight end, dude, who do you want to go with? Do you want to go with Kraft, Bellinger? Thoughts on tight end or is this is probably an Okonkwo situation because of the ownership and he's just a better player overall, right?
Yeah, just put in Okonkwo.
All right, so wide receiver wise, we've got two spots. We got a wide receiver and a flex. Let's go with I really think you got to go with Wicks here. 3,800. He'll make my single entry build. Now we've got some decent salary here. Let's see what we can do. Let's pick a defense first. Let's go with the Dolphins here and see what we can do. 3,300. So we're gonna end up down here in this is two tight end territory here. Not something I necessarily want to do. Malik Heath is in this range. You could go with the Cray Craft. You could get 3 pass catchers here. What are we doing? Should we move off of Saquon here? Should we move off of maybe Waddle here? What should we do so we can have a little bit more room for this last spot?
Yeah, throw in D-Hop over Waddle. Just see what that does.
All right, it saves us a decent amount. So 4,700, that gets us to Jaden Reed. That is doable right there.
Probably
I like that
cash,
a lot.
yeah.
So Tua, Barkley, Dillon, Hill, Hopkins, Wicks, Okonkwo, Reed. So we got Dillon, Wicks, and Reed from Green Bay. You got Barkley there. You got Tua, Hill, and the Dolphins defense with the run back of Tennessee and Okonkwo. This feels like a very balanced type cash build. Not bad. Things may change, injuries may come up, but as of now, this feels pretty good. Let's build some tournament builds. So let's do a Tua build. Let's do a Tua build here, but let's get really crazy with it. Let's game stack the shit out of this one, right? So Tua, how we handling the pass catchers? You want to go Hill and Waddle right off the bat? You want to fade Hill in this one and go Waddle, maybe with one of the running backs here? I don't know. Where are we going?
Let's actually fade Tyreek Hill, throw in Jalen Waddle, and let's put in one of the running backs. Let's put in Achane or something.
Okay, let's put in Achane. Let's run it back with. You want D-Hop? You want to go crazy with Westbrook Akine? You want to go down to Traylon Burks as like a pure punt? What are we doing?
I mean, look, let's just game stack it, dude. Throw in Chig and throw in D-Hop.
All right, let's go D-Hop. All right, so running back wise, so we've got a decent game stack here. We've got 5 players from the same game. We could go heavier if we wanted. Probably want to go to, Derrick Henry. I don't know if that fits the game script here, but we could. Or we can go with either Barkley or AJ Dillon if Aaron Jones is out. Where are we going? You want to go AJ Dillon here?
Let's do AJ Dillon. Let's try something. Let's do AJ Dillon. Throw that final wide receiver spot. Throw in Wicks.
Okay, that's gonna be a theme for me. I'm gonna have a lot of him.
Yeah,
3,800. So now we got plenty of space here. So if we wanted to go, what defense fits for this? Probably Green Bay defense here, right? Pay up a little bit, get to Green Bay defense. Where are we going now? We got Tajay Spears, Dobbs, Reed. I mean, I really think that Dobbs and Reed are the best options here. I don't think there's any reason to overthink this, right?
Yeah, I agree.
You can go either
throw
one.
in Yeah, throw in Dobbs. I think that's a good place to start. And then, I think after you read this one off, there's a quick pivot I want to do on this.
All right, so Tua, Achan, Dillon, Waddle, Hopkins, Wicks, Okonkwo, Dobbs, and Packers. All right, what's your pivot?
Go from Achan down to Mostert,
All right, you
and then
coming
come
up off
off
of somebody?
Dobbs,
Dobbs, D.
Derrick
Henry.
Henry. Yeah,
I like it, dude. So Okonkwo and Henry and D Hop. So we've got how many players from this game? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you've got 3 Green Bay guys. We don't have anybody from the Giants, which I don't really hate. I don't hate that at all, actually. This is pretty nice. Let's build some other quarterbacks here. So let's build a Jordan Love lineup. Who do you want to put with him? Wicks right off the bat, right? And then you probably want to make the decision between. I mean, you don't have to play Wicks in every lineup. I'm not saying he's going to put up 12 plus fantasy points, but the guy
it's just
is in a really good spot. So let's put in Tyreek Hill. Let's put in Wicks, Dobbs or Reed, or both.
Let's go Reed. Let's go Jaden Reed.
Should we put in Kraft here at tight end to go along with the quarterback?
Yeah, let's do it.
That feels like a pretty decent strategy because there's so many kind of scrubby type tight ends. Unless you're going with Chigo Okonkwo, maybe just pair your quarterback with your tight end. All right. So where are we going running back wise? We got about 5,800 a pop here. We're in a good spot. We probably want to get to one of these Miami running backs if we're fading Tua, and we could we could just go Tua and Waddle here without the quarterback. I don't hate that.
Yeah,
what would you rather do?
Let's do this and see what running backs we can end up with.
All right, so let's look. Well, I guess let's do running backs first, and then we'll see what we got left. So Barkley, Achan, Mostert, Henry, Dillon. Is this a Dillon situation? I don't think we want to put Dillon in this lineup. He's not going to get. He might steal points.
Yeah, I think this is probably. Let's start with a Miami guy. I think
Achan or Mostert doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Let's see, and then yeah, I guess throw in Derrick Henry. Right, unless there's somebody else that we're comfortable playing. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that though, right? Titans defense.
Titans defense. I mean, it's crazy, but it's not in. Yeah. I mean, look. This is a 2-game slate, man. They're 2,300. This allows us to get to this lineup by building with Titans defense. Probably not going to do a ton of that. Let's go down from Henry to. Man, I mean, Spears. That's a little weird.
I don't hate it. Listen, I don't want to talk anybody into this, but Derrick Henry did have a concussion. There's no reason honestly he should be in protocol. I don't know why he's playing in that game. If you think that there's a potential that his head hurts too much, Tajay Spears is a great change of pace back for that team.
So what are we doing here? We're probably going Packers defense here, right?
Yeah.
Blowout script. So Love, Achan, Spears, Wicks, Hill, Reed, Kraft, Waddle, and Packers defense. Let's do one more build. Do you want to do Levis or DeVito?
Let's do Levis. It's gonna be too fucking hard to do Danny DeVito.
All right, Levis, D Hop. You want to just go down and put in Burks? Try it.
Yeah, Burks, Nick Akina, I don't care. I mean, they're rotatable, so whichever you want. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll run this lineup twice. I'll have Traylon Burks and then I'll have Nick Akina in the other one.
And if you're jumping around, we got to mention obviously, Burks might not get run. So this is purely just guessing the fact that maybe he's going to get some more run coming off of that injury. All right, where do we go now here? Let's just game stack the shit out of this game with Tyreek.
Yeah,
Waddle. Potentially. Do you want to do Waddle?
Do it.
All right, running back wise, where are we going here? Maybe avoid Henry for this one. Let's get some exposure to this other game. Barkley. You want to go Barkley and AJ Dillon in a cold game outdoors?
Yeah, if we can afford it, let's do it.
Let's try it. I think we can because tight ends are dog shit. So You know, we could, instead of Burks, you could go Okonkwo, whatever. Let's just leave it as is here. Let's go with, I don't know, Kraft, Bellinger, anybody, right? You want to even go Durham Smythe or something here weird?
Like, throw in Julius Randle or whatever the fuck that random
Hill.
tight end from Miami is. Yeah, Julian Hill.
All right. Any defense we want? What defense? Probably Packers defense here, right?
Yeah, I mean that's awesome because look, that gives you $300 more. I think you can 2,800. I think that actually does get you up to Daniel Bellinger if you're more comfortable with that.
Yeah, you could do Bellinger. Yeah, so we got Will Levis, Barkley, Dillon, Hopkins, Burks, Hill, Bellinger, or whoever you want there. Waddle, Packers. This feels like a really fun slate. We have the potential for 2 blowouts potentially. We know that Miami is going to put up 30 points. Like that's pretty much guaranteed. The thing we need to figure out here is, can Green Bay's offense put up a good amount of points? The total is pretty low. Vegas seems to think that maybe Packers are only a 3-touchdown type team this week. What are your thoughts, man? What did you learn after building here? We can do whatever the hell we want because of the value, especially with the Green Bay pass catchers. It feels like you got to get a minimum of 1 or maybe even 2 pass catchers or at least 2 studs from Miami if you're not stacking them. And a guy like A.J. Dillon, if Aaron Jones is out, he's in a good spot. I know he's not a sexy player. I know he's not great. But dude, this is December, man. Quadzilla. This is what he's built for here, man. Going up against a bad run defense. What'd you learn?
Yeah, man. This isn't that tight of a slate. I think there's going to be a lot of flexibility for building the salary. I think one thing that we're just going to have to be particularly mindful of is because of that, a lot of people are going to be maxing their salaries. So maybe just you don't need to be crazy. This isn't Showdown. Don't max 49,000. Maybe you limit the amount that you have 50K.
You mean putting a cap on your salary, right? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I feel you. Who's your dirt bag of the day? Super low punt type guy that can score a touchdown. What do you think?
Yeah, Traylon Burks.
Love it. I think one of these rando tight ends is going to score. If Bellinger's in, I think he probably scores. All right, guys, we appreciate it. If you guys are YouTube members, you guys expect a Monday show. Probably Titans Dolphins first thing in the morning, and then Packers Giants a little bit later in the day tomorrow on Monday. And if you guys wanted to join the YouTube members, click down join below. It's only $3.99 a month. You get both of those shows and a Monday show every week. We'll see you guys later.